Now, here we have the coins of the Manila Mint made for the territory of the Philippines. In a later installment, we will look at the coins made for the Commonwealth of the Philippines. But at this point, the great deal was that in 1920, we officially inaugurated a brand new mint in the Philippines. It was under American jurisdiction, though not American Bureau of the Mint. But it did get its dies from Philadelphia, just like all the other branch mints, and was in many regards an overseas branch mint. So now we have the 1920 cent, which has no mint mark, as distinct from the 1920 S made in San Francisco. So there's the 5 cent, and the 10 cent, and the 20 cent, okay, and the 50 cent, Now, he also took over the dies from Frank and Sons, and similar dies, except now saying 1920. We redid the 10, 20, and centavo and 1 peso. There's never a 50 centavo for the leper colony. So the 10 centavo is again issued in 1920, this time by the Philippines Mint, and no longer by the private contractor. There's the 20 centavos. As you can see, the coins look the same. They're still made of aluminum. And the only peso coin made so far was those for the leper colony. That's actually a fairly nice one. Now, to commemorate this great event, of course, was what is sometimes called the Wilson dollar. President of the United States. That was Woodrow Wilson. I don't know why he's on there, but they call it the Wilson dollar because it's got Wilson on it. To commemorate the opening of the mint, Manila PI, 1920. So, this existed in copper. It may be easier to see, however, in the one that's silver. The one that's silver is actually made to the same size, diameter, and metallic standards of a silver dollar, but it is not a dollar. But they call it the Wilson dollar, even if it's in copper, silver, and there's a handful of gold specimens known to exist. Regrettably, that's a little too rich for my blood. Now, the next year, this new normal continued, this time just with the regular issues for the Manila Mint. 1921, 1 cent, 5 cent, 10 cent, and 20 cent, and 50 cent. Okay, now 1922, things start scaling back again. We made the 1 cent. And we made a couple of leper coins. Now here's this Philippine Health Services 1922. And it even has kind of a mint mark, this funny little thing in the middle. It's a P and an H. Capital P, little H inside the circle there. Okay. Culian Leper Colony, Philippine Islands, 20 centavos, now in brass. So at last they have something more enduring than those pathetic aluminum coins. They even upgraded the peso. So once again, and you see the little PH in the middle for the mint mark for Philippines, because this was made at the Philippine Mint. These are not in, none of these leper coins are in the Red Book, even though the Mint made these. Culian Leper Colony, okay, 1922. Then there's a couple of years of no coins. In the intervening time, however, collector Gilbert Perez talked to somebody to persuade them that what they really should do for these Philippine coins is have a mint mark, M for Manila. So there you see the first appearance of the Manila mint mark on this 1925 cent. And again, this is 1925 5 cent. See the little M there. So that was kind of a start. And then we made another one for the leper colony. Now this one puts Dr. Roselle on here for the first time. Obviously, Dr. Roselle is going to be here in a lot of pesos over the course of Philippine history. And it all started here with this little brass coin made for the inmates of the Culion leper colony. Philippine Health Services, 1925. For a healthy nation. You can actually read most of that scroll there, PS. And if you look underneath the star, there's a little P for Philippine and an M for Mint. Philippines or Manila. Anyway, the P and M are the mint mark to indicate that this coin is made in also the Manila Mint. Well, life continues along. 1926, there's a 1 cent. Okay. There's a 5 cent. And then 1927, there's a 1 cent. And a 5 cent. Unusual gray steel wool toning, and yet just absolutely sharp. It's hard to say what happened to this one. In 1927, we also did a few more coins for the leper colony. There's a 1 centavo, finally replacing those aluminum centavos of 1913, which had to last until now. That's why they're so worn out. 1927. And there's at least a couple, maybe different dies. You look on the back side, and you can see the scroll is a little bit thicker, and the folds are vertical on the second variation, as distinct from the first, where the scroll is a little skinnier and angled on its curvature. So there's a couple different dies at least, or maybe there might be a third, I'm not sure. There's also a leper colony 5 cent to replace those aluminum 5 cent coins last made in 1913. Same basic motif. I think it still has a little tiny P under this star and M under that. Yeah. So 5 centavos. So that's kind of good for the Culion inmates. Now, continuing, 1928. Here's our centavo. And here's our 5 cent. Now, something else happened. They had run out of 20 centavo pieces. And Philadelphia Mint didn't want to be rushed to make a die. They needed them right away. So they took advantage of the fact that the new reduced size 20 cent is almost exactly the same size as the 5 centavo, which resulted in that mule we saw 10 years earlier, 1918. Now in 28, what they did was they used the front die of a 20 centavo from another year, because that's always the same, and they mated it with the back die of the 5 centavo. You notice the skinny badge, the large date, but still says 1928M. So it's another muled coin. This, of course, is deliberate. That's how they made this coin in that year, was always as this mule. And they just made enough of these to tide them over for the year. So obviously for next year, they'd have to really take care of this for real. Here you are, 1929. The 1 centavo continues to chug right along. And there's no 5 cent this time, but they decided also it was time for some more 10 cents. So there's a 1929M 10 cent. And now we made a bunch of official 1929 20 centavos with a real die. See, now it's the wide shield and the small date. So that became, now we had a good supply of those two coins again. but no 5-cent because they were retooling a new design which we introduced in 1930. Here's the 1-cent. Still there every year, pretty much, almost every year. And now the 5-cent is this new smaller design. Reduce the diameter so you won't confuse it with a 20-cent. 1930 is also the last year they make a coin for the Cooley leper colony. So that's it, a little brass 10-cent. Now let's see, 31. There's a 1-cent. And a 5-cent. And 32. There's a 1-cent. And a 5-cent. $33, only the 1-cent. Boy, that's not very much. Look at this though. I mean, that's just gorgeous. All right, 34. The 1-cent continues to be made. And the 5-cent again is made again. Okay. And 1935. Once no 1-cent, but there's a 5-cent. And since I guess we're only going to make 2 coins, they decided to make the other one be the 10-cent. 1935M. Late that year, they became a Commonwealth. So 1936, they are now a Commonwealth, but the 1-cent does not reflect that change yet. And there we are.